Dance hall queen promised to protect a child, until the sheriff claimed him as his son. She swore to protect him on the rim of a whiskey glass, a promise spat out between smoke and song, and by dawn, the sheriff would ride in and call the boy his own. The saloon stank of spilled liquor and sweat-stiff collars, the air thick enough to chew. Lanterns swung low, casting long, crooked shadows that danced like drunkards across the warped floorboards. Lila Rose moved through it all like a ghost in silk, hips swaying, smile sharp, eyes older than her 23 years. Men tossed coins at her feet. She didn't bend to pick them up. Not anymore. Not since the night the boy came. He'd slipped in just past midnight, barefoot and trembling, clutching a rag doll with one button eye. No one noticed him at first, not the gamblers hunched over cards, not the drunks singing off-key by the piano, not even Big Tom, the bouncer with knuckles like river stones. But Lila saw him. Saw the way his ribs pressed against his threadbare shirt. Saw the dried tear tracks cutting through the dust on his cheeks. Saw the hollow behind his eyes, the kind only hunger and hurt could carve. She knelt beside him right there on the sawdust floor, ignoring the catcalls, the whistles, the muttered bets on how long she'd last before throwing him out. She poured water from her own glass into his cupped hands. He drank like a dog, fast, desperate, messy. Then he looked up at her, and whispered one word, "Mama." Her breath caught. Not because he thought she was his mother. But because no one had looked at her like that, like she was salvation, since she was a girl barefoot in a Georgia cotton field, watching her own mama get sold downriver. She didn't correct him. Instead, she wrapped him in her shawl, red silk, worth more than his whole life, and carried him upstairs to her room above the saloon. The stairs groaned under their weight. The hallway smelled of mildew and old perfume. Her room was small, cot, wash basin, cracked mirror, but clean. She tucked him under the quilt, humming a lullaby her mama used to sing. He fell asleep before the first verse ended. At sunrise, she sat at the edge of the bed, watching his chest rise and fall. Outside, the town stirred, boots on porch planks, wagon wheels on dirt, a rooster screaming at the sky. Inside, silence. Sacred. Fragile. She poured 2 fingers of whiskey, the cheap kind that burned all the way down, and held the glass up to the light. "I swear on this glass," she whispered, voice raw as a fresh blister, "I'll keep you safe. Even if it kills me. Even if it damns me." She drank it in one swallow. The burn felt like truth. By noon, the sheriff rode in. Harlan Briggs, tall, broad, clean-shaven, with eyes like flint and a badge polished bright enough to blind a man. He didn't come for trouble. Didn't come for whiskey. Didn't even come for women. He came for the boy. Strode into the saloon like he owned the air, hat low, spurs chiming. The piano player stopped mid-note. Cards froze mid-deal. Lila stood at the top of the stairs, the boy clinging to her skirts. "Step aside, Miss Rose," Harlan said, voice calm as a grave. "That's my son." The room didn't gasp. Didn't murmur. Just, stilled. Like the whole town held its breath. Lila didn't move. "You got papers for that, Sheriff?" He smiled then, slow, cold, the kind that didn't touch his eyes. "I got a Bible. And a bullet. Take your pick." The boy whimpered. Lila's fingers curled into fists. Her shawl slipped from her shoulder. The whiskey glass sat empty on the windowsill behind her, catching the sun like a warning. She had no law. No husband. No name worth more than spit in this town. But she had a promise. And in the West, promises were the only things heavier than guns. The sheriff didn't take the boy that day. Not yet. But he left his shadow behind, long, dark, stretching across the floorboards, across Lila's bed, across the boy's dreams. And shadows, in the desert, always grow longer before nightfall. The boy wore boots 2 sizes too large, stitched by her hands, stuffed with rags, tied tight so he wouldn't lose them in the dust, and every step he took away from her felt like a nail in her coffin. Eli learned to walk in those boots before he learned to smile again. Lila had stitched them herself, scrounged leather from a dead horse's harness, lining from an old coat, laces braided from curtain cord. They were clumsy things, thick-soled and creaking, the left one squeaking louder than the right. But they kept his feet from blistering on sun-baked earth and frozen porch planks. She knelt each morning to tie them, fingers working the knots tight, whispering, "Don't you dare trip, little ghost." He didn't. Not once. Even when the sheriff came to collect him 3 mornings a week, for schooling, he called it, though everyone knew there was no school in Redemption Falls, just the jailhouse with its iron bars and ledger books. Eli walked tall. Chin up. Shoulders back. Boots thumping steady on the boardwalk like a drumbeat only he and Lila could hear. The town watched. Always watching. Mrs. Calloway from the dry goods store pretended to dust her window when he passed. Reverend Pike crossed the street rather than walk beside him. Even the stray dogs, mangy, half-starved things, gave him a wide berth, as if sensing the storm that followed him. Lila watched too. From the upstairs window. From behind the saloon's lace curtains. From the shadowed mouth of the alley where she smoked her cigarettes and counted the minutes until he came back. When he did, he never cried. Not out loud. But his eyes, those big, brown, bottomless eyes, told stories his lips wouldn't speak. Stories of chalkboards wiped clean before he could read them. Of arithmetic lessons turned to scripture recitals. Of the sheriff's heavy hand on his shoulder, not cruel, not yet, but possessive. Like a man marking territory. "He calls me, son, in front of folks," Eli whispered one night, curled beside her on the cot, boots still on, too tired to untie them. "But when we're alone, he calls me it." Lila didn't answer. Just pulled the quilt higher, tucked it under his chin, and kissed his forehead, right between the eyebrows, where her mama used to kiss her. She started leaving things for him. A hunk of cornbread wrapped in wax paper, tucked beneath the jailhouse windowsill. A tin soldier, rusted but still standing, left in the crook of the oak tree near the livery. A note, just 3 words, "I'm still here." She never signed them. Didn't need to. Eli knew her handwriting, looping, slanted, like wind through sagebrush. The sheriff knew too. He didn't confront her. Not yet. But he started locking the jailhouse shutters at dusk. Started walking Eli home himself, hand firm on the boy's neck, eyes scanning the rooftops, the alleys, the saloon's glowing windows. One evening, Lila waited for them on the porch of the abandoned mercantile, arms crossed, shawl fluttering, face pale in the twilight. Harlan stopped 10 paces away. Eli tried to step forward. The sheriff's grip tightened. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Miss Rose," Harlan said, voice low, almost gentle. "The boy's better off with me. You know that." Lila didn't blink. "Better off ain't the same as loved." Harlan's jaw twitched. He glanced down at Eli's boots, the squeaky left one, the frayed lace on the right. "Those boots won't last the winter. I'll make him new ones. He won't need them where he's going." That stopped her. Cold. Sharp. Like a knife between ribs. "Where's that?" she whispered. Harlan smiled. "Not the cold one. Worse. The pitying one. Somewhere he can be a real boy. Not a saloon pet." He turned. Walked away. Eli looked back, just once, eyes wide, pleading. Lila didn't wave. Didn't call out. She just stood there, fists clenched, heart hammering, until their shadows vanished into the gloom. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window, stitching new boots, smaller this time, quieter, lined with rabbit fur. She worked by candlelight until her fingers bled. Until the sky turned gray. Until the first coyote howled in the distance, lonely, hungry, haunting. She didn't know it yet. But those boots. They'd never touch Eli's feet. The sheriff didn't wait for winter. He moved faster than a dust storm. And by the time Lila woke the next morning, Eli was gone. Not to school. Not to town. Gone. His cot was empty. His rag doll. Left behind. His boots. Still by the door. Untied. She found the sheriff's Bible tucked behind his desk, its pages dog-eared, its cover cracked, its margins stained rust-brown, not with ink, but with old, dried blood. The town didn't help her. Not the bartender who'd seen Eli eat his last meal. Not the laundress who'd washed his shirts. Not even Doc Henderson, who'd stitched Lila's knuckles after a drunk tried to grab her off stage. They all looked away. Shook their heads. Mumbled about law and order, about what's best for the boy, about not crossing Harlan Briggs. So Lila stopped asking. She started digging. She waited until midnight, when the saloon finally emptied and the moon hung fat and yellow over the desert, then slipped through the back alley, past the snoring drunks and the rattling wind chimes, toward the jailhouse. The lock was new. Shiny. Meant to keep men in. Didn't stop a woman with a hairpin and a heart full of fury. It clicked open on the third try. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of sweat, gun oil, and something sour, fear, maybe, or regret. Moonlight sliced through the barred windows, painting stripes across the floor. Cell doors hung open. No prisoners tonight. Just silence. And dust. And the low creak of the gallows rope swaying out back. She didn't look for Eli. Not yet. She looked for truth. Harlan's desk sat in the corner, oak, heavy, scarred with coffee rings and bullet dents. She rifled through ledgers first. Arrest records. Fines paid. Warrants issued. Nothing about a boy. Nothing about a father. Then she found it. Tucked beneath a stack of land deeds, leather-bound, gold-edged, thick as a brick. The sheriff's Bible. She opened it slow. Pages crackled like dry skin. Verses were underlined, "Thou shalt not steal. Honor thy father. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." All in Harlan's tight, slanted script. But it was the stains that stopped her. Brown. Blotchy. Smudged near the Psalms. Fingerprints near Proverbs. A whole corner of 1 Samuel stiff with it, like someone had wept, or bled, or both, right onto the Word of God. She flipped faster. Tucked between Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon, a brittle newspaper clipping. Headline, Lynching at Dry Creek, Mob Takes Justice into Own Hands. Date, June 17, 1879. Beneath it, a grainy sketch, a man hanging from an oak, face blurred, hands bound. Below him, a woman on her knees, arms outstretched. And beside her, a small figure. A boy. Barefoot. Button-eyed. Eli. Her breath came fast. Shallow. Her fingers trembled as she turned the clipping over. Scrawled on the back, in faded pencil, wife dead of grief 3 weeks later. Boy taken into custody by Sheriff H. Briggs for protection and moral rehabilitation. Protection. She almost laughed. Almost screamed. Instead, she shoved the clipping back, snapped the Bible shut, and pressed it to her chest like a shield. She knew what she had to do. She waited for him at the churchyard. Not inside the chapel, too many eyes, too many ears. Out back, where the graves tilted like drunkards and the wind carried whispers from the desert. She stood beside the fresh mound, Martha Briggs, beloved wife, the only woman Harlan ever claimed publicly. Died in childbirth, they said. Baby with her. Lila knew better now. The sun dipped low. Shadows stretched. Crickets started their evening song. Harlan came alone. Hat in hand. Coat unbuttoned. No gun belt. Just the Bible tucked under his arm. He didn't look surprised to see her. Knew you'd come, he said, voice quiet, almost tired. Knew you'd dig. Lila didn't move. You stole him. I saved him. You stole him. From what? His daddy swinging. His mama weeping. Or from you? Harlan stepped closer. The Bible's edge dug into his ribs. That man was a thief. A murderer. The boy was headed down the same path. So you took him. Gave him your name. Your bed. Your lies. I gave him a future. You gave him chains. Harlan's eyes hardened. You think love's enough out here? You think lullabies and cornbread keep wolves from the door? This world eats soft hearts, Lila. I made him strong. You made him afraid. Silence then. Thick. Heavy. The kind that comes before thunder. Lila took a step forward. He's not your son. Harlan didn't flinch. Legally. He is. Morally. Maybe not. But God don't care about paperwork. He cares about who shows up. And you showed up with a rope in your pocket. Harlan's hand twitched, not toward a gun, but toward the Bible. He held it out. Take it. Read it. See what I've carried. See what I've buried. She didn't take it. You buried his mama, she whispered. You buried his daddy. You're trying to bury him too, under your name, your rules, your damn sermons. Harlan's voice dropped to a growl. Then dig him up. He turned to leave. Lila didn't call after him. Didn't beg. Didn't cry. She just watched him walk away, Bible in hand, shoulders squared, boots crunching on gravel, and knew. This wasn't about law anymore. This was about blood. And blood, in the West, always called for more blood. That night, she didn't go back to the saloon. She went to the livery. Bought a horse with every coin she had left, a sway-backed mare with kind eyes and a limp. Paid extra for a saddle, a canteen, a roll of jerky. The stable boy asked where she was headed. North, she lied. Truth was, she didn't know. Only knew she wouldn't stop until Eli was free. Or until she was dead. Behind her, the church bell tolled midnight. One slow, hollow note. Like a death knell. Or a starting gun. She danced for them one final night, silk swirling, hips swaying, smile painted on like war paint, while a derringer nestled warm against her thigh, and the boy watched from the sheriff's grip, waiting for her signal to run. The saloon hadn't seen a crowd like this since the cattle drive came through. Lanterns blazed. Fiddles screeched. Whiskey flowed like river water after rain. Men shoved tables aside, stomped their boots, tossed coins onto the stage like offerings to a goddess they knew was doomed. And Lila, oh, Lila, gave them everything. Red dress. The one she saved for funerals and farewells. Hair pinned high, curls tumbling loose like she didn't care, though every strand had been placed with purpose. Rouge on her cheeks. Kerosene in her veins. And beneath the lace hem of her garter, cold, smooth, waiting, the derringer. She didn't look at Eli. Not at first. Let him think she'd forgotten him. Let the sheriff think he'd won. Harlan sat front row, same chair he always took, left of center, back straight, hat on his knee. He sipped bourbon slow, eyes never leaving the stage. Smug. Certain. Like a man who'd already buried his ghosts. Eli sat beside him, stiff as a fence post, suit too tight at the shoulders, collar biting his neck. His boots, the new ones Harlan bought, polished black, no squeak, no sole, tapped nervously against the floorboard. He didn't clap. Didn't smile. Just stared at Lila like she was a mirage, beautiful, dangerous, maybe not real. The music swelled. Lila danced. Not like before, not for coins, not for survival, not even for pride. She danced like a woman saying goodbye to her own grave. Every spin sent silk flying. Every step echoed like a heartbeat. She caught coins in her palms, kissed them, tossed them back into the crowd. Men howled. Women, the few who dared come, looked away, ashamed or envious, maybe both. Halfway through the set, she let her shawl slip, slow, deliberate, letting it pool at her feet like blood. The crowd roared. Harlan didn't move. But Eli? Eli leaned forward. Just an inch. Just enough. That's when she saw it, the flicker in his eyes. The spark. The knowing. She smiled at him then. Not the painted one. The real one. The one that said, I'm still here. I haven't left you. Not yet. The fiddler screeched into the final reel, fast, frantic, wild as a stampede. Lila spun toward the edge of the stage, arms wide, breath ragged. And dropped her handkerchief. White linen. Embroidered with a single rose. It fluttered down. Landed right at Eli's feet. Harlan didn't notice. Too busy watching her hips, her smile, her throat as she laughed, loud, bright, hollow. But Eli saw. He bent. Pretended to tie his shoe. Slid the handkerchief into his sleeve. And inside it? The key. To the sheriff's spare horse. Tied out back. Saddle packed. Canteen full. Jerky in the saddlebag. All arranged. All waiting. The music hit its last note, a screech, a stomp, a crash of applause. Lila took her bow. Blowing kisses. Winking. Laughing like her heart wasn't breaking. Then she turned, slow, deliberate, and walked off stage. No encore. No goodnight. Just gone. Behind the curtain, she didn't breathe. Didn't move. Just listened. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then, a chair scraped back. A man's voice, Harlan's, sharp, sudden. Where's the boy? A pause. A gasp from the crowd. Then, running. Boots on wood. Shouts. A door slamming. And then. Hooves. Thundering. Fast. Fading. She didn't look. Didn't need to. She knew. Eli was running. Free. For now. She pulled the derringer from her garter. Loaded it. Cocked it. Not for Harlan. Not yet. For herself. If they caught her. She wouldn't go to jail. Wouldn't go to trial. Wouldn't let them parade her through town like a sideshow freak. She'd go out clean. Quick. Own terms. She stepped out the back door. Into the alley. Into the dark. The desert wind howled like it knew what was coming. And far off, so far she almost imagined it, a train whistle cried across the plains. Not coming. Leaving. Taking Eli with it. Or so she prayed. She didn't get far. 3 blocks. Past the blacksmith's. Past the boarded-up bakery. Past the well where she used to draw water for Eli's baths. Then, hoofbeats behind her. Not one horse. 5. Lanterns bobbing. Voices shouting. Stop her. Don't let her reach the ridge. Sheriff says bring her in alive, but don't bother being gentle. She ran harder. Boots slipping on gravel. Dress tearing on fence posts. Gun heavy in her hand. She reached the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to scrub brush and sage, and turned. Faced them. 5 men. Deputy Cobb in front, young, eager, rifle raised. Lila rose, he yelled. Drop the weapon. She didn't. Just smiled. Raised the derringer. Not at them. At the sky. And fired. 1 shot. Sharp. Bright. Echoing. A signal. A salute. A starting bell. Then she turned, and ran straight into the teeth of the painted desert. Behind her, the posse gave chase. Ahead? Nothing. Just sand. Just stars. Just silence. And somewhere out there, a boy on a horse. Running. 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 They never found her body, just a lammet horse, an empty canteen, and a single red rose nailed to a desert pine, but the boy. He heard her voice in every wind, her footsteps in every silence, long after the sheriff's lies turned to dust. The desert doesn't forgive. Doesn't forget. Doesn't bury. It swallows. Lila ran until her boots split at the seams. Until her throat cracked from thirst. Until the stars above blurred into one endless, silver river. Behind her, the posse's lanterns flickered like dying fireflies, closer, then farther, then gone. They didn't know these dunes like she did. Didn't know where the dry washes hid water. Didn't know which rocks cast shade at noon. Didn't know the coyotes' paths, or how to follow them. She did. She'd danced in saloons, yes, but she'd also slept in ditches. Stolen apples from orchards. Slept under wagons when the rain came sideways. The desert didn't scare her. It welcomed her. Like a mother. Like a tomb. By dawn, her horse, sweet, stubborn Daisy, stumbled. Lamed. Frothing at the bit. Lila slid off, kissed her muzzle, pressed her forehead to the mare's heaving side. Go on, girl, she whispered. Find shade. Find water. Live. She didn't look back as the mare limped away. Didn't need to. She knew Daisy wouldn't make it. Neither would she. But Eli. Eli would. She'd made sure of it. The Navajo trader, old Mano with his quiet eyes and slower tongue, had promised. I take him north. To canyon lands. To people who remember what family means. He'd taken the boy without a word, without payment, without even a nod. Just wrapped Eli in a wool blanket, tied him gentle to the saddle, and vanished into the purple twilight like smoke. Lila didn't ask his name. Didn't ask where. Didn't need to. She trusted the desert more than she trusted men. And the desert had sent Mano. That was enough. Now, alone, she climbed. Coyote Bluff, jagged, wind-scoured, the highest point for 20 miles. From here, she could see the whole world, the crooked spine of Redemption Falls in the distance, the silver thread of the railroad, the endless ochre sea of sand and sage. And there, far, far out, a dust plume. Riders. 5. Closing. She sat. Not because she was tired. Because she was done running. She pulled the derringer from her garter, still warm from her skin, and laid it in her lap. Unloaded it. Tucked the bullets into her pocket. No sense wasting lead on men who'd bury her anyway. Instead, she pulled out the last thing she owned. A rose. Dried. Brittle. Red as a fresh wound. The one from her hair the night she danced. She pressed it to her lips. Whispered Eli's name. Then she stood. Faced the horizon. Wind whipped her dress, torn, stained, beautiful, like a flag of surrender. Or defiance. Maybe both. The riders crested the ridge. Harlan in front. Hat gone. Hair wild. Eyes burning. He reined his horse hard. The others fanned out behind him, rifles ready. No words. Just silence. The kind that comes before thunder. Before judgment. Before mercy. Lila didn't beg. Didn't plead. Didn't curse. She just looked at him, really looked, and smiled. Not the saloon smile. Not the painted lie. The real one. The one that said, "You lost." Harlan's hand twitched. Not toward his Bible. Toward his gun. The shot cracked like dry timber splitting. Echoed off the bluffs. Rang through the canyons. Scattered the crows. Lila didn't fall right away. She swayed. Looked up, not at Harlan, not at the sky, but at the wind. As if she could see Eli in it. Hear him. Feel him. Safe. Free. Far. Then she folded. Slow. Graceful. Like a dancer taking her final bow. The wind caught her before the sand did. Lifted her hair. Tugged her dress. Carried her last breath away. Harlan dismounted. Walked to her. Didn't check for pulse. Didn't close her eyes. Just stood there, tall, trembling, hollow, and whispered, "Damn you, Lila Rose." Then he turned. Mounted. Rode away. The others followed. No burial. No marker. No prayer. Just dust. And silence. And wind. Years passed. Redemption Falls dried up. Saloon burned. Jailhouse collapsed. Sheriff Harlan died in his sleep, peaceful, they said, with his Bible on his chest and his boots still polished. No one remembered Lila. Except Eli. He returned on a spring morning, taller now, lean as a whip, skin kissed bronze by canyon sun. He wore no hat. Carried no gun. Just a satchel, a canteen, and eyes that had seen too much, and forgiven nothing. He walked through the ghost town like a man visiting a grave. Past the saloon's charred beams. Past the rusted gallows. Past the church where Martha Briggs still slept beneath cracked marble. Then, to the bar. What was left of it? One table still stood. One chair. One glass, miraculously unbroken, sitting right where she used to leave her tips. He sat. Poured whiskey from his own flask. Drank slow. Paid in silver, 3 coins, placed just so. Then reached into his coat. Laid a single red rose, dried, brittle, beautiful, on the chair beside him. The wind stirred. Lifted the petals. Carried them out the broken window. Out into the desert. Where they belonged. Where she belonged. Some say if you walk Coyote Bluff at dusk, when the shadows stretch long and the coyotes sing their lullabies, you can still hear her. Not crying. Not screaming. Humming. Soft. Low. The lullaby her mama taught her. The one she sang to Eli. The one that carried him to safety. The wind knows it now. Sings it for her. And if you listen close, you'll hear it too. And you'll know. She never left. Never will.